Zyron had expected many things when the humans awoke: anger, confusion, maybe even violence. But the calm in the first human's eyes was somehow worse. The man stepped out of the pod, rolling his shoulders as if shaking off centuries of sleep. Ice cracked and fell from his skin. More cryo chambers hissed open behind him, and one by one, the other humans stirred, their movements slow but deliberate. Zyron took a shaky step forward. Do you remember who you are? The human blinked at him, then looked at his companions. A woman stretched her arms, another ran a hand over the stubble on his chin. They exchanged glances, as if checking that they were all real. I remember enough, the man finally said, voice steady. And I know one thing. His gaze locked onto Zyron, sharp as a blade. You wouldn't have woken us unless things were bad. Zyron nodded quickly. They are. Our ship is dying. The enemy is closing in. We don't have much time. The man tilted his head. Enemy? Zyron's throat tightened. The Dominion. The word hung in the air like a curse. The humans exchanged glances. The Dominion, the man repeated, testing the word like it was something foreign. Doesn't sound familiar. He cracked his knuckles. But if they're after you, I'm guessing they're not the friendly type. Zyron swallowed hard. They are conquerors. They've taken over half the galaxy. Our world is gone. Our people are gone. We are all that's left. His voice faltered. And now they are coming for us. The humans were silent for a moment. Then, the woman, tall, lean, with a presence that made the air feel heavier, spoke. How long have we been under? Zyron hesitated. We don't know the exact time. Records were lost. But at least 1,000 years. The humans went still. 1,000, the first man echoed. His tone didn't change, but something behind his eyes did. The ship shuddered violently. Alarms flared again. The Dominion had found them. Zyron's people panicked. They clutched each other, whispering in terror. They had seen what happened when the Dominion boarded ships. There were no survivors. The humans, however, didn't panic. The first man turned to his companions, speaking in a language Zyron didn't understand. Whatever he said, the others immediately nodded, as if they had slipped into an unspoken rhythm. Then, he turned back to Zyron. Take me to the bridge, he said. Zyron hesitated. Why? The man's lips curled into something that wasn't quite a smile. Because I want to see what we're working with. The bridge was in chaos. Screens flickered, damaged from previous attacks. The crew scrambled, trying to maintain what little control they had left. On the main screen, the Dominion warship loomed, an enormous, dark vessel, its jagged edges designed to inspire fear. The lead Dominion commander appeared on the comms, his reptilian features twisting into a cruel sneer. Vothian vessel, he hissed. Your cowardly run ends here. Power down and prepare to be boarded. Zyron's people trembled. But the humans? The humans barely reacted. The first man, who had yet to give his name, stepped forward, eyes locked onto the screen. He studied the Dominion warship, its shape, its size, its movements. Then he turned to Zyron. How much firepower does this ship have? Zyron shook his head. We are not built for battle. The human exhaled through his nose. Figures. He studied the screen for another moment, then turned to his companions. All right, he said. Let's get to work. Zyron frowned. Work? What do you mean? The human finally looked at him directly. And for the first time, Zyron saw something in his eyes, something unsettling. Confidence. We're going to fix your ship, the man said. And then, we're going to teach the Dominion what happens when they mess with the wrong species. Zyron stood frozen as the words echoed in his mind. Teach the Dominion a lesson? Did the humans not understand? The Dominion had wiped out entire civilizations without breaking a sweat. The Vothians had been scholars, traders, explorers, none of it had mattered when the warships came. They had pleaded for mercy. They had surrendered without a fight. The Dominion had destroyed them anyway. And yet, the humans did not seem afraid. The first human, the one who had taken charge, walked to a control panel and ran his fingers over the outdated interface. He frowned. "This ship's a relic," he muttered. "Looks like someone slapped together 1,000 years of tech, hoping it would hold." He turned to his team. "What do you think?" A woman examined the power conduits. "Engines are barely holding together." "Weapons, huh? Looks like someone tried to install something heavier a few hundred years ago, but they never finished." Another man studied a tactical display. "Shields are gone. No real armor either. But this layout. This was built off old human blueprints. Pre-fall era." Zyron's breath caught. "Pre-fall?" The first man looked at him. "Yeah. Back when we were a proper spacefaring species. Before whatever happened to put us on ice." He tapped the console. "Whoever modified this ship over the centuries, they were using human designs. Probably without even knowing it." Zyron's mind spun. The idea that humans had once ruled the stars was an old myth, something mentioned only in hushed whispers. But if it was true... A tremor rocked the ship. The Dominion warship was drawing closer. The human didn't flinch. "All right," he said, voice calm. "First things first. Let's get this bird flying properly." Zyron blinked. You can repair it?" The woman snorted. "Repair it? We can make it better." The humans split up, moving through the ship like they had done this 1,000 times before. Zyron and his crew could only watch as they tore into systems, bypassed circuits, and rerouted power like it was second nature. Zyron tried to follow their work, but their words were clipped, their movements precise. They spoke in half-sentences, finishing each other's thoughts without hesitation. And then it hit him, these weren't just any humans. They were soldiers. He swallowed hard. Who were you? Before the cryo sleep?" The first man barely glanced up. "We were what the galaxy made us." He connected 2 loose cables, and a power surge rumbled through the ship. "And now? We're what it needs." The tactical display flickered. For the first time in hours, shield levels rose. Energy readings stabilized. Zyron's breath caught. "How?" The human grinned. "Because humans don't go down easy." Another tremor hit, stronger, this time. The Dominion was getting impatient. The screen flared to life again, and the enemy commander sneered. "I see you are still resisting. Your struggle is meaningless." His slitted eyes narrowed. "You are weak." The first human chuckled. "You sure about that?" The Dominion commander blinked. Then, for the first time in centuries, the Vothian ship powered up its weapons. The humans stood back, admiring their work. The ship was still in bad shape, but it was no longer defenseless. Zyron felt something he hadn't in a long time. Hope. The human turned to him. "All right, Zyron. We bought you some time. But if we're really going to win this," he cracked his knuckles, "we're going to need to get serious." Zyron hesitated. "What do you mean?" The human's grin turned razor sharp. "You woke us up," he said. "Now we're going to wake up the rest." The Dominion warship loomed closer, its jagged silhouette blocking out the distant stars. Zyron's crew whispered in terror, their voices barely audible over the hum of the repaired engines. The Dominion didn't negotiate. They didn't accept surrender. Once they had a target locked in, they saw it through to the end. But the humans didn't seem concerned. If anything, they looked excited. The first man, who Zyron now understood was their leader, studied the enemy ship with sharp, calculating eyes. "They think they've already won," he muttered. That's their first mistake. One of his companions, the tall woman who had been working on the ship's systems, smirked. And their second? He rolled his shoulders. Underestimating us. Zyron swallowed hard. You do realize that we can't win a fight against them, right? Their weapons are far superior. Their shields, the human cut him off with a raised hand. We don't need to win a fight. He pointed at the screen, where the Dominion vessel was beginning to extend its docking arms. We just need to make them think we're fighting. Long enough to set a trap. Zyron's brow furrowed. A trap? With what? The human only grinned. The ship trembled again as the Dominion began a full lock-on sequence. The comms flared to life once more, and the Dominion commander's voice oozed through the speakers. Final warning, Vothians. Disable your engines and prepare for capture. His tone was amused, almost lazy, as if he were already savoring his victory. Your struggle is pitiful. Zyron braced himself. He had seen what happened next, ships overwhelmed, their crews taken as trophies, their names erased from history. But the humans? They didn't even flinch. The leader of the humans leaned over the console, flicking a switch. Yeah, he said, voice casual. We hear you loud and clear. The Dominion commander blinked. You, surrender? The human smiled. No. We stall. He slammed a button. Immediately, the Vothian ship surged forward, engines roaring to life. The sudden burst of speed sent the Dominion vessel reeling as the humans steered their ship into a wild, unpredictable spin. Chaos erupted. The Dominion scrambled to readjust their approach, their own systems struggling to predict the erratic movements. Zyron's people clung to the walls, wide-eyed as the humans barked orders at one another in clipped, confident tones. What did you do? Zyron gasped. The human didn't take his eyes off the controls. We're buying time. And making sure they really want to chase us. The Dominion ship adjusted, their weapons now fully charged. A warning shot fired, barely missing. One of the other humans let out a low whistle. They're getting mad. The leader grinned. Good. Let's make them madder. With a sharp yank, he twisted the controls, sending the ship veering toward a nearby asteroid field. The Vothian crew yelped in alarm. Zyron's voice cracked. That is suicide. The human didn't even blink. For them, maybe. And then, in a maneuver that should have been impossible with their ship's broken state, the humans dived straight into the asteroid belt. The Dominion hesitated for a fraction of a second, just long enough. The humans used it. They twisted through the rock formations with razor-sharp precision, skimming past massive chunks of floating debris, their ship weaving an unpredictable, deadly path. Zyron's heart pounded. No pilot had ever flown like this. No one was supposed to fly like this. The Dominion ship, larger and bulkier, tried to follow. And just as the humans had predicted, it struggled. Chunks of rock slammed against their hull, forcing them to slow down. The humans weren't slowing. The leader turned to Zyron. How many ships are after us? Zyron's voice wavered. Only one, but, good, the human said. Then we've got them exactly where we want them. Another human, the one monitoring the power levels, smirked. And here I thought we'd wake up to a boring day. The Dominion fired again, but the shot went wide, striking an asteroid instead. The explosion sent a shockwave through the field, creating even more debris. The leader pointed. There. That one. The woman at the weapons console narrowed her eyes. You want me to hit it at the right angle, and their path gets completely blocked. She grinned. Copy that. A single, precise shot fired. The asteroid cracked, splitting into massive chunks that tumbled directly into the Dominion's path. The enemy ship had no time to react. A sickening crunch echoed through the speakers as the Dominion vessel slammed into the debris, throwing it off course. The humans didn't wait to see the aftermath. The leader turned back to the controls. Punch it. With a final burst of speed, the Vothian ship disappeared into the asteroid field, leaving the Dominion ship stranded in the chaos behind them. Silence. Zyron realized he was gripping the edge of the console so hard his hands ached. The humans? They were laughing. The leader turned to Zyron, wiping a bit of frost from his sleeve. "See," he said. "Told you." Zyron's voice barely worked. "Told me what?" The human's grin sharpened. "We don't run." The Vothian ship drifted through the asteroid field, its battered hull creaking with every movement. The Dominion warship was no longer in pursuit, trapped behind a debris field of its own making. Zyron still couldn't believe it. They had escaped. Not through diplomacy, not through surrender, but through sheer audacity. Through reckless, impossible maneuvers that no Vothian pilot would have ever attempted. The humans had done it without hesitation. Zyron turned to their leader, who was now leaning against the console, arms crossed, completely at ease. It was as if he had just taken a casual stroll rather than led an escape from one of the most feared warships in the galaxy. "That should buy us a little time," the human said, glancing at the others. "But not much." Zyron's throat was dry. "They will send more." The human nodded. "Exactly." Zyron frowned. "Then why do you look pleased?" The human's lips curled into a small, knowing smile. "Because now we have a real opportunity." The rest of the humans exchanged glances, as if silently confirming something among themselves. Then, their leader leaned in. "Tell me, Zyron," he said. "What do you know about turning the tide?" Zyron hesitated. "What do you mean?" The human tapped the console. "Right now, we're prey. The Dominion is hunting us. That's their biggest advantage. They don't fear us." Zyron stiffened. "Because there is nothing to fear. They have superior numbers. Superior weapons." The human arched a brow. "And yet, we just made one of their warships look like an amateur." Zyron swallowed. The human leaned closer. "They think they've already won the galaxy. They think we're just stragglers waiting to be wiped out. That arrogance?" He smirked. "It's a weakness." Zyron's mind reeled. "You can't possibly be suggesting we," the human cut him off. "I am suggesting it." He glanced at his team. "We don't need to fight the Dominion head-on. That would be suicide." Another human, one with a keen, tactical gaze, stepped forward. "But what if we make them think they're losing control? What if we start hitting them where it hurts? Not battles, not fleets, supply lines. Communication hubs. The places they depend on." Zyron's heart pounded. "That would be suicide." The human shrugged. "Not if we do it right." Zyron stared at them. They weren't joking. They were actually considering this. A species that had been frozen for 1,000 years was planning to wage war against the greatest military force in the galaxy, with a single broken ship. It was insane. It was impossible. And yet, something inside Zyron stirred. Because hadn't everything about the humans been impossible so far? Hadn't they already done things no one else could? Zyron exhaled shakily. "Even if we could strike at them, we don't have the firepower." The human's grin widened. "Then we find some." Zyron blinked. "You want to find weapons?" "Weapons," the human said. "Technology. Ships. Whatever's left of the old war. There's no way the galaxy just forgot about us. Somewhere out there, pieces of what we used to be are still floating in the dark." The woman at the weapons console nodded. "We just need to wake them up." Zyron's mind raced. If there were remnants of humanity's past out there, ancient ships, hidden caches of weapons, even old research stations, what would they find? And what kind of force would they be unleashing back into the galaxy? He looked at the humans again. They were awake now. And the more he saw them, the more he understood, they weren't just survivors. They were something else. Something dangerous. Something the Dominion had every reason to fear. Zyron exhaled. "All right," he said slowly. "Where do we start?" The human clapped him on the back, grinning. "Now you're thinking like us." Zyron gripped the console as the ship shuddered through the warp tunnel, its overworked systems groaning under the strain. The humans had done the impossible, again. They had turned a desperate escape into the beginning of something much bigger. Their next destination? A graveyard. The coordinates the humans had chosen led to a forgotten battlefield, a system littered with the wreckage of a war lost to time. If humanity had left anything behind, it would be here. Zyron's fingers twitched as he scanned the approaching field of debris. Twisted hulls of ancient ships drifted lifelessly, their broken bodies frozen in time. The remains of a battle fought long before he was born. He turned to the human leader. "Are you sure about this?" The man studied the wreckage, expression unreadable. "Yeah," he murmured. "I'm sure." The woman at the weapons console adjusted her display. "Scanning for anything salvageable. If we're lucky, something's still intact." Zyron frowned. "And if we're not lucky?" The human's lips quirked. "Then we make do." The ship drifted deeper into the wreckage, passing under the skeletal remains of a massive dreadnought. Zyron shuddered. The Dominion had won this battle, just like all the others. But something about this place felt unfinished. Then, a soft chime. "Got something," the tactical human said. "Power signature. Weak, but active." Zyron's eyes widened. "After all this time?" The human leader's gaze sharpened. "Take us in." The ship maneuvered carefully, weaving through the debris. Then, through the dust and shattered metal, something emerged. A ship. Smaller than the wrecked dreadnoughts, but sleek, angular, unmistakably human. It was battle-scarred but whole, its surface pitted with the marks of forgotten combat. And unlike the others, it still had power. Zyron's breath caught. "What is that?" The human beside him exhaled. "That," he said, voice tinged with something almost like reverence, "is one of ours." They docked carefully. The airlock groaned as it connected, dust shaking loose from the old ship's hull. Zyron's heart pounded as the humans led the way inside. The corridors were dark, silent except for the hum of emergency power. The humans moved with a strange familiarity, their boots echoing against metal that hadn't been touched in centuries. Finally, they reached what looked like a command deck. The human leader stepped forward, brushing frost from an ancient console. A single phrase flickered onto the display. "Authorized personnel required." The human smirked. "Let's see if we still count." He placed his hand on the console. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then, system reactivating. Zyron flinched as lights flickered to life. The ship shuddered, as if waking from a deep slumber. And then, a voice, cold, synthetic, ancient. "Welcome back, Commander." "Orders?" Silence. The humans exchanged glances. Then, the leader's grin returned. "Now," he said, cracking his knuckles, "we make sure the Dominion remembers us." Zyron's breath caught in his throat as the ship's systems flickered to life. The old human vessel groaned under the strain of reawakening, its long-dormant reactors pulsing with energy once more. The humans stood in silence, their faces unreadable. Zyron stepped forward cautiously. "This ship is still functional?" The human leader, who had now firmly taken command of every situation since waking up, nodded. "Looks like it." His gaze swept over the consoles, taking in the readouts with alarming ease. "This thing's old, but it was built to last. And it's still armed." The woman at the weapons console let out a low whistle. "Plasma cannons, missile payloads, even a stealth system. Someone really didn't want this ship found." Zyron shuddered. "You make it sound like this was some kind of ghost ship." The leader's eyes darkened. It might be. The artificial voice crackled to life again. Commander authentication confirmed. Weapon systems online. Long-range scanners detecting multiple hostile signatures. The room fell silent. The humans exchanged looks. Zyron felt the air shift, something unspoken passed between them, something he didn't understand. The leader turned back to the console. Clarify, he ordered. The ship's AI responded instantly. Multiple Dominion warships entering the system. Estimated time to engagement, 20 minutes. Zyron's stomach twisted. They found us. One of the other humans muttered under his breath. Took him long enough. Zyron couldn't believe their tone. The Dominion was closing in, and they weren't even panicking? Didn't they realize what was coming? Listen, he started, voice urgent, we have to run. This ship might be operational, but there's no way it can take on an entire fleet. The human leader didn't look up. You don't get it, do you? Zyron faltered. What? The leader turned to face him, expression unreadable. This isn't just some forgotten wreck, Zyron. This ship? It wasn't lost. It was hidden. The AI's voice chimed in, confirming his words. Accessing mission logs. Final transmission located. Playing now. A burst of static filled the room. Then, a voice, deep, commanding, and undeniably human. To any who find this message, know that we did not fall. We were betrayed. The war was never meant to be won, it was meant to erase us. But humanity does not forget. And we do not forgive. Zyron felt the temperature drop. The humans stood stone still, their jaws tightening. The message continued. If you are hearing this, then you are the last of us. But that does not mean we are finished. Our weapons remain hidden. Our war is not over. If you wake us, we will finish what we started. Static swallowed the last of the recording. Silence. Zyron's blood ran cold. What does that mean? The human leader exhaled slowly. It means, he said, voice steady, that we weren't the only ones left behind. Alarms screamed through the dying starship. Lights flickered, casting long, jagged shadows across the walls. The air was thick with the stench of burnt circuits and something worse, desperation. Zyron clutched the console, his claws trembling. His people were not meant to be in this situation. They were scholars, diplomats, never warriors. Yet here they were, the last remnants of a proud civilization, adrift in the void with nowhere left to run. The ship shuddered violently. Another hit. Shields were gone. Hull integrity was failing. The enemy had found them, and soon, this would all be over. He turned to the others, his fellow survivors. Their eyes, wide and sunken, were filled with the same terror that gripped his own heart. They all knew what was coming. There is one option, whispered Velka, voice barely audible over the alarms. The room fell silent. They all knew what she meant. Zyron's throat tightened. No. We were warned, we don't have a choice, she interrupted. They'll board us, and they won't leave a single one of us alive. But if we wake them, she hesitated. If we wake them, we might have a chance. The others recoiled. Even in the face of certain death, the thought of it was terrifying. The records were clear. The warnings were absolute. Never wake the humans. They had been placed in cryo-sleep centuries ago, locked away deep within the ship's hidden chamber. No one alive knew exactly why. The stories spoke of chaos, of destruction, of a time when humanity ruled the stars and nearly tore the galaxy apart with their sheer will to survive. Zyron closed his eyes. There was no decision to make. They were already dead. This was the only way to change that. Without another word, he turned and ran. Past the smoldering consoles, past the bodies of those they had already lost. He reached the chamber door, his hand hovering over the control panel. He could hear his own breath, sharp and unsteady. He pressed the override. A deep hum vibrated through the ship as the massive doors slid open, revealing rows of towering cryopods. They were covered in frost, their surfaces cracked with age. Inside, the humans lay motionless, entombed in ice and time. A screen flickered to life. Warning, emergency revival sequence engaged. The system groaned as it awakened. Lights blinked erratically. Fluid drained. Tubes hissed. The ship trembled as if it too feared what was about to happen. Then, movement. A hand twitched. A breath hitched. A pair of eyes snapped open. Cold. Unyielding. Human. The first one stepped forward, ice cracking off his skin. His gaze swept the room, landing on Xiron. "What year is it?" the human asked, voice hoarse, but steady. Xiron swallowed hard. We need your help." The human studied him for a long moment, then exhaled. "Yeah," he muttered. "I figured." The weapons specialist turned to the scanner readouts. If that message was right, then somewhere out there are more ships like this one. Xiron couldn't believe what he was hearing. "You're saying, humanity planned for this?" The leader didn't answer immediately. He studied the display, eyes narrowing. Finally, he spoke. "No," he murmured. "We knew this was coming." A warning alarm blared. Dominion warships entering weapons range. Xiron's pulse spiked. "They're here." The humans didn't react with fear. They reacted with purpose. The leader turned to his team. "Shields up. Weapons hot. Let's remind them why they buried us." The old ship's hull vibrated as its long dormant systems came fully online. Energy surged through the conduits. The lights on the bridge dimmed, and a deep, mechanical hum filled the air. The Dominion had come to wipe out the last remnants of a dead species. They had no idea that species was done playing dead. The human leader turned to Xiron. "You wanted to know why they feared us?" He gestured toward the screen, where the Dominion ships loomed ever closer. "Watch." The Dominion warships descended like hunting beasts, their massive hulls cutting through the darkness. Xiron's heart pounded as he watched them take formation. He had seen this maneuver before, tight, controlled, overwhelming. They were preparing to strike, to erase the last remnants of his people, just as they had done to so many others. But this time was different. This time, the humans were awake. Xiron stole a glance at them. They weren't panicked. They weren't scrambling for an escape route. They were calm, like this was just another battle. Like they had been waiting for this. "Targets locked," the woman at the weapons console reported. The human leader nodded. "Fire when ready." Xiron flinched. "You're seriously fighting them?" The leader gave him a sharp look. "We're not fighting, Xiron." He turned back to the display. "We're teaching." The ship's ancient weapons roared to life. Plasma cannons that had been silent for centuries burned bright as they fired, slicing through the void. The first Dominion ship took a direct hit to its shields, sparks of energy dancing across its hull. Xiron braced for the inevitable retaliation. The Dominion never tolerated resistance. Their counterattack would be swift and, he froze. The Dominion ships weren't firing. They were hesitating. "What?" Xiron swallowed. "Why aren't they shooting back?" One of the other humans chuckled. "Because they weren't expecting this." The Dominion commander's voice crackled through the comms. For the first time, there was something in his tone Xiron had never heard before. Uncertainty. "Impossible," the commander hissed. "That ship was lost centuries ago. You cannot be human." The human leader tilted his head. "Funny," he mused. "Because we are." The Dominion hesitated for only a second. Then, as if shaking off their shock, they opened fire. The first blast rocked the ship. The shields flared, barely holding. More shots followed, rapid, precise, deadly. But the humans didn't flinch. brace, the leader ordered. Let them think they've got us cornered. The Dominion kept firing, hammering their shields. Xiron clenched his fists. They wouldn't survive much longer. Any time now, the weapons specialist muttered. Almost, the leader said, eyes locked on the enemy ships. Just a little closer, Xiron's hands curled into the console. Closer? They're about to, now. The human leader slammed a control. The ship vanished. Xiron's stomach lurched as the ship shifted in ways he didn't understand. 1 second, they were locked in the Dominion's sights, the next, they were behind them. The enemy ships hesitated. And the humans struck. Plasma rounds slammed into the Dominion's exposed engines, ripping through their defenses. The second ship tried to adjust, but it was too late. Their own momentum carried them forward, right into the debris of the battlefield. It was chaos. The humans wove through the wreckage, using it as cover, striking from angles the Dominion had never considered. Xiron had never seen anything like it. This is impossible, he gasped. The human leader smirked. No, he said. This is war. The Dominion ship scrambled to recover, their formations breaking apart. This wasn't how they fought. They were used to overwhelming force, crushing enemies beneath sheer power. They had no answer for human adaptability. One Dominion ship, desperate, furious, tried to ram them. Evade, the leader ordered, unfazed. The pilot twisted the controls, and the ancient ship responded like it had been waiting for this moment. The Dominion ship barreled past them, missing by meters, before crashing into an abandoned war cruiser. A silent explosion filled the void. The remaining Dominion ship hesitated. And then, something unthinkable. It turned and ran. Xiron's mouth went dry. The Dominion never retreated. They had no fear. No hesitation. And yet, here they were, running from a single ship. The human leader exhaled, watching the enemy flee. That's more like it. Xiron struggled for words. I don't understand. They could have wiped us out. They should have wiped us out. The leader gave him a long look. They would have, he said. If we had fought them the way they expected. He turned back to the display, watching as the Dominion ship vanished into the stars. But now? His voice dropped. Now, they know we're back. Xiron's heart pounded. The galaxy had changed while the humans slept. Empires had risen, civilizations had fallen. But now, the Dominion's greatest enemy was awake again. And Xiron had the sinking feeling the war was only just beginning. The Dominion ship had fled, its once dominant presence, now nothing more than a speck vanishing into the abyss. The battlefield was silent again, but the weight of what had just happened lingered in the air, like an unspoken warning. Xiron could barely process it. The Dominion retreated. Not because they were outgunned, not because they had suffered heavy losses, but because they were afraid. He turned to the humans. They weren't celebrating. They weren't boasting about their victory. They simply stood in quiet confidence, their expressions unreadable. As if this was just another battle in a war that had never truly ended. Xiron exhaled shakily. What happens now? The human leader stepped forward, his gaze locked on the stars ahead. Now? His voice was steady, but there was something in it, a weight that Xiron hadn't noticed before. Now, we do what we were always meant to do. Xiron frowned. And what is that? The leader turned to face him fully, his expression unreadable. We remind the galaxy why they feared us. Xiron felt a shiver crawl down his spine. He had seen many things in his lifetime. He had watched civilizations burn. He had seen what unchecked power could do. But never, not once, had he seen something so small, so outnumbered, stand against an empire and win. And it wasn't just their strength. It wasn't just their tactics. It was who they were. The humans hadn't woken up looking for revenge. They hadn't asked for their old empire back. They had simply refused to accept defeat. And that, Zyron realized, was what made them dangerous. Not their weapons. Not their technology. Their will. The galaxy had moved on. The humans had been forgotten, erased from history. But now, they were awake again. And if Zyron had learned anything from them, it was this: when humans were backed into a corner, when all hope was lost, that was when they were at their most dangerous. He swallowed. So, what now? Do we wage war? The human leader studied him for a long moment before shaking his head. Not war, he said. Not yet. He gestured to the ruins around them, the wreckage of forgotten battles, the ghosts of an old war. We don't need to start a war, Zyron. We just need to show the galaxy that we're still here. A slow realization dawned on Zyron. The humans weren't just fighting to survive. They weren't just fighting to reclaim their past. They were fighting to prove a point. That humanity had never been conquered. And that as long as one of them was still breathing, the fight was never over. Zyron exhaled, the weight of it settling in his chest. For the first time in his life, he felt something new. Not fear. Not hopelessness. But certainty. The galaxy had turned its back on the humans. Now, it was time for them to turn back. The human leader clapped him on the shoulder. Let's get to work. Zyron nodded, stepping forward. He wasn't just following them anymore. He was choosing to stand beside them. Because if there was one thing he knew for sure, it was that the galaxy had no idea what it had just woken up. Final life lesson: it's not the strength of your weapons that defines you. It's not the size of your army. It's the will to stand, even when the odds say you shouldn't. The humans had been forgotten. But now? Now, they were a reminder. A reminder that even in the darkest of times, humanity never truly loses. They just wait for their moment to rise again.